All right, we are live. Good morning, everyone, from wherever you're calling in. My name is Tanya Pinto. I am the founder of Baal Dan Charities. Baal Dan means helping children. And I have a very special guest with me today, who is Brad Collins, a longtime friend and donor to the charity. And we just wanted to have a little chat this morning about a famine appeal that we're doing. So welcome, Brad.
Welcome and good morning, everyone. And I especially for those on the West Coast, I appreciate everyone getting up so early to listen in to this fantastic opportunity to donate to and help children in need. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. And for those of you who are on the line, this is the first time we're doing LinkedIn Live. It's an audio call. And if you want to speak, and you're welcome to speak at any time, you have to raise your emoji hand using the react button. And then I click a button that lets you speak, and then you can come off mute. So please don't be shy. Please do that. We want this to be a conversation. And so I wanted to start with a little bit of background. So Baal Dan is a charity that I started actually in 2005 after taking a sabbatical at Mother Teresa's orphanage in India. This sabbatical changed my life, and I decided to start this 501c3. And a few years after that, went to Hyderabad in India and started to identify orphanages there that could help children. And actually, that's how I met Brad. So, Brad, do you want to talk about how we first met and what kind of led you to be with, volunteer with the charity while you were there?
Absolutely. So I had the opportunity around the same time to travel to India, to Hyderabad for work. And that was around 2005. And then a few years later, my wife and I, shortly after being married, we decided to move to Hyderabad as expats. And when we, one of the things that really struck us upon moving there was the opportunity. We wanted to find an opportunity to help, right? And we just thought, well, where could we find a hands-on opportunity to not just donate, but to help. And so we volunteered, and that we literally met you the first day, and so that was probably 15 years ago that we've continued our relationship, and that's what I love about your organization is that even though for my wife and I, we're back in the States now, but we've continued our relationship because I love the fact that when you and I connect, you'll say we have this opportunity like we're going to talk about today, and we know that the donation is going to be is going to have an immediate effect, and we to be able to help children. So that's what's so fantastic that my wife and I just love about what you do.
That's amazing. And I think, we have a couple of our board members on the call, Nabi, Angelina. We have Ram, who's been an advisor from day one, and Ram, who's actually from Hyderabad. And one of the things that I've been able to do, and I'm very grateful for, is our network, because I really believe that it's all about partnership and it's all about finding who you can trust. The needs are great everywhere. The needs are great no matter where you go, especially in Africa, especially in Asia. When you go to these places that are developing or emerging, the needs are never going to be, satiated. But how you can actually help, how you can make sure that while sitting here in the U.S., when you give $1, how do you really know where it's going, that it will make an impact? How do you know it's not getting lost to corruption? It's not going to just, unnecessary expenses. How do you really make sure it's getting to help children in need? And that's the problem that I think Baal Dan has been in the business of trying to solve for 15 or 16 years. And so very often we work with grassroots organizations that are really small, that have the ability to both absorb the funding that we give, but manage it and manage it well, such that it goes directly to help children. what we mostly fund is food, supplies, clothing, education costs, small-scale construction. We have built a couple of schools, but, it's things like toilets and latrines. But this thing that we're doing today, this emergency famine appeal, this is something that's very different. And I think, Brad, you know that, because I don't think in all these years I've come to you with anything like this. So I want to sort of ask you about, when I came to you about this opportunity, what is it about it that stood out to you? And then I'll talk a little bit about the needs and what we're trying to do.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's so heart-wrenching, right? When you reached out to me, and then you shared goal that inspired you to reach out on the issue. I have children, right? Part of what inspired me when I was in India, it was it was heart-wrenching to come to to be driving, to come to a stop and see a mother and child with begging, and I just thought to myself, what can I do to try and help that situation, right? It felt so, you feel so helpless. You can give money, right? But I would always just feel so helpless in those situations. So when you came to me and told me, the dire situation that these children are in due to famine, I don't know how you can't, I don't know how you can't be inspired to help. And the thing I love about working with you is I just know that the work that you put in, just the groundwork to ensure that, as you said, every dollar that's being contributed is going directly to help these children, to help them, to feed them, to save their lives, right? I mean, that's there's no more there's nothing more important than that, right? I mean, it's literally as you shared with me, they're on the brink of starvation. They're in starvation, but they're on the brink of death. And this can, in 8 weeks, I believe you said, these type of nutrients can bring them back. So when you shared that story with me, it's heart-wrenching. To me, all you want to do at that moment is help. How can you help? So that's really what inspired me. You always bring me the stories. Haiti, right? With the earthquake, and we were trying to get emergency diapers to them. It's like, how can we help these children in great need as quickly as we possibly can?
Yeah, and thank you. And that is a perfect segue to how and why this all started. So many, many years ago, and I have a dear friend that's joined the call, Luline, and this is how she fits into the story. So when I was a little girl, it was the 80s, and there was a massive famine, one of the worst famines in over a century in Ethiopia. And, it displaced not just millions of people, but it actually, this famine caused over 1 million deaths. And the images that I saw as a child of the famine in Ethiopia stayed indelibly in my mind. And I remember being a child and then watching, like the Live Aid concert and this song, Do They Know It's Christmas, that was sort of a big hit to raise money. I remember that left a big impression on me. And I made a promise back then that I would do something to help children in need. I wanted to go to Ethiopia. I wanted to see these children. I wanted to help. Fast forward many years later, I had started Baal Dan. I had been working in India, and it was my wish and my dream to go to Ethiopia. I had never been to Africa. And in 2012, through sort of a lot of different things coming together, I quit my full-time job, and I went to Ethiopia for 3 months to be a volunteer with World Vision and to learn about the country that I had kind of dreamed about and been fascinated about, how to help children there, about humanitarian aid there. And in the course of that visit, I met Luline, who's actually joined us on the call. And Luline, if you want to speak, you can actually raise your emoji hand. You can use the reaction button, and I can bring you on stage to speak. But Luline and I met. She was working at World Vision at the time. She and I became just best friends, and she and I were in the field, and even though this is many, many years after the famine, I saw firsthand the needs that there are and the poverty and the situation that children live in, carrying buckets of water for miles because there is no water supply, living on, subsistence farming. Just the poverty was on a scale that I'd never seen before. And that's when Baal Dan started helping children, not just in Ethiopia, but in other places in Africa. But they weren't in a famine situation, right? Like there's a difference between famine and starvation and then being, kind of poor and being in poverty. And so that's what we've been doing for many, many years. We stopped our funding in Ethiopia when COVID happened, when the war broke out, when Luline moved, because she was my auditor on the ground there. And so I had been scanning generally how to help. And I started to see news reports of what was actually happening in Somalia and the Horn of Africa and East Africa, and how this drought, this climate-induced drought, and we are, I think, even in the U.S., feeling the effects of climate change, has displaced many, many thousands of people, has removed their source of livelihood, their source of food, and has started to cause a really dire situation. An interesting thing happened is that when I saw one of these news reports, I reached out to colleagues and friends that I know in the NGO network. One of them is at IRC, and I said, what is going on? And he said, it's really bad, and we're not getting the media attention we really need to be getting because it's been, a terrible year. There's so many problems in the world. And he was like, Tanya, thank you so much for reaching out. And I thought at that moment, I'm reaching out on behalf of Baal Dan, which is a tiny, tiny charity. And so I asked him, do you think I could make a difference? Isn't this something that, the big NGOs need to be tackling if it's famine, if it's starvation? And he said, no. He's like, every penny will help. Let's get you connected. And I was really stunned at that point, and then began, as you said, Brad, the process of the due diligence, connecting with people on the ground, evaluating organizations in Ethiopia that had access to that region, access to those people that are being displaced, those mothers, those children. And, there are local organizations that are, maybe have 30 people, 40 people that are there doing the hardest work imaginable, putting themselves at risk, working in extremely hot climate. It's a drought, it's hot, it's dangerous. There is other risks associated with Somalia. And I started to get connected, and we figured out a way that if we could raise $30,000 US, it could be split amongst two organizations to really get children help. And this whole process, I have been sort of I don't know if I should do this. I don't know if this will work. It is kind of an experiment. We've never helped children ever in such a dire consequence, in such a risky consequence and risky context. And when I heard about the children coming to the health centers, and when we talk about acute malnutrition, starvation, and wasting, it means that they are on the brink of death. And it means unless they have this nutritional intervention, ready to use therapeutic food, which is packed with nutrients, that's fed by to them by their mothers in a little pouch. They get these pouches supplied by UNICEF that help the mothers kind of keep the kids on track and bring them back. These children will likely die. And through a lot of different partners on the ground, we figured out a way that Baal Dan could play a part to bring an extra 150 children supply of that food. So allow these little clinics to intake more children, because the need is greater than they can manage. The need is much larger than they are able to fund, and produce, right? So this helps us lift the capacity of the number of children being helped in emergency schools through this ready-to-use food, and also for their families, giving them a little bit of cash stipend so they can buy whatever they need, so they don't have to make their children work or go out to labor, because it's, again, a very complex situation. So that's the due diligence we did. And if anyone has any questions at this point about that, please do raise your hand about, that. And I don't know, Luline, if you want to speak, if you can, but that's kind of how we identified partners and what we are trying to do and address. And, like I said before, it's out of our core remit in a sense. We generally help children that aren't in this dire situation. We generally are helping kids in orphanages, in little schools that are established. But in a conversation with Nabi, who is our treasurer, who's on the call, I sort of said to him, should we do this? Is this something we should just try to go for? And Nabi was like, let's do it. Let's try. We can only try to raise this money, and there's Luline. 1 second, Luline, I'm trying to...
Good morning.
Hello.
Hello. Good morning, everybody. It's nice to meet you. My name is Luline. I'm Tanya's Ethiopian friend. I just want to come on in and say hello and thank you so much for everybody dedicating their time, their resources, their energy, their love. Especially thank you, Tanya, for always believing in the world, not giving up, like I sometimes feel like to. But I just want to say and encourage everybody that it's what you said. Anything can help. Everything can make a difference on a child, on two children, on a mother's life, and children's future. That's what I can say. At this point, I am overwhelmed. I am too emotional because for me, it's never ending. It's always it keeps going and coming back, and when you think things are better, and then they go back again. But what is giving me strength these days is what you said. We can do the best that we can, and then we go on, we go forward. And I wish this situation gets more attention, but the world we are in, a much bigger wars, the pandemic, so many instabilities. All these are helping in depriving attention to such issues. And I just say, thank God there are people who still care, who still listen to the muted voices. And I just want to say thank you to everybody, and it's a pleasure to see you all here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Luline. And Luline is, she's very humble and modest, but she's literally been with me in Ethiopia on the ground. When she was there, she was, going in her own car, in her own vehicle to help these children that Baal Dan was sponsoring, to buy their school books, to check on them, to counsel the mothers, doing all the heavy lifting that, in the U.S., we just send the money. We just make that credit card transaction on PayPal, and then we just say, yeah, there you go. But actually doing the work on the ground, these are the real heroes. These are the ones who, are often people who work in NGOs and nonprofits. They're not making a lot of money. They're not doing it for the money. They're barely sometimes living above the poverty line themselves, but their commitment to helping their fellow man, the people, children, what they go through to oversee these projects, that's what's amazing. And I was really struck by the people that are working with this famine appeal, what they're going through to get the aid to the children, to try to partner to figure this out. You only have to look at the scenes, and our good friend Baal Dan Quantran put together a video for us, which I've posted online. I'd love for all of you to share this video, share this appeal. But, a famine is something on a very different level, and that's why we're calling it an emergency appeal. So yes, hello Rohan, good to hear from you. I'm gonna hit the button, so hopefully it'll let you speak. Welcome.
Hi Tanya, long time. Thank you so much for the work you're doing. Luline, thank you as well for the appeal. I just had a question, very moved by the presentation and appeal. Is there a way is the website the best way to be able to contribute? Just curious, what's the best logistical approach?
Yes, the website has a donate link. It's just the general donate button to Baal Dan. You can just click the link and you can make a donation. all the donations that are coming in, Nobby and I are scanning for them. They are going to go to this appeal. And this brings us to our match, which is that Brad has very kindly and generously decided to match every single dollar that comes in till we hit the $5,000 mark. So it will double your donation. Does that answer your question, Rohan?
It does. Thank you so much for everything you guys are doing. Thank you, Brad.
Thank you, Rohan. And Rohan helped us so many years ago. He's so amazing that he's still connected. So wonderful volunteer for us. And the website is www.baldan.com. When you get to the homepage, you'll see the donate button. You can click there. In the top menu, you'll see this famine appeal. You can learn more about the famine appeal. We have a video that's posted there. We have, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We have a lot of channels where we're posting information.
Fantastic. Thank you.
So we have just under a minute left. Anything else, Brad, that you want to say in this appeal? Anything that we should be adding for our friends? I'm going to try to post the recording of this.
Yeah, I'll just say anyone that's listening in, either now or afterwards, I'm going to keep doubling until we reach our goal. And I just want to thank you, for the opportunity. As you said, it's really, the thanks goes to you for bringing this to everyone's attention, and to those on the ground that are doing the real work of saving these children's lives. So, I just really appreciate every time that you bring something like this to me, because anything that we can do, and I think it was said best that continuing to bring issues like this to the foreground, to our networks on LinkedIn, on social media, to ensure that that when there are crises like this around the world, we're all global citizens, right? We have to continue to lift each other up and look for opportunities to do things like this. So I just want to thank you and just appeal to everyone listening in to donate. I'll double it, and let's do all we can to save these children.
Thank you so much, Brad, and thank you to everyone on this call. To make a donation, just go to www.baldan.com. You'll see the donate button on the top nav. You'll see the famine appeal. Every single dollar not only will get matched, but will also go directly to children. All of us that are involved with Baal Dan are all 100% volunteers. We all subsidize any costs associated with the charity, so we do not take any costs, any admin costs, and I want to make sure that you know that. So we are, 100% will go directly for this RUTF, for the emergency schools, for the supplies. So we try to ensure that, everything is going directly on the ground. If you have any questions at all, you can reach out to me. If there is anyone else that wants to say anything, please do raise your emoji hand, or otherwise I will... Nope. Oh, there's Rohan giving us a round of applause. Thank you so much. But thank you, everybody, and feel free to reach out. Thank you to our wonderful team. Have a lovely, lovely rest of your day. We'll post updates on how far we get with our match. And special thanks to Brad. Brad has had an impact on literally hundreds of children over the course of our relationship. It's donors like Brad. It's people who believe and who do it without, very humbly, quietly, without a lot of noise, who help us in this work. So we can only do this because of donors like Brad. So thank you again, Brad, and everyone have a wonderful, wonderful day.